Welcome to the You Empowered podcast with your host, Justine Jetty. If you want to unlock your potential and step into the most authentic, healthiest, and happiest version of you, then you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into practical, evidence-based strategies for your habits, mindset, and health so you can create a life and a body you love. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the You Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Justine Jetty. If you're in peri or post-menopause and you've been told that your body is broken or that you need a special diet or detox or hormone protocol just to lose fat, this episode is for you. Today I'm busting some of the biggest menopause myths that are keeping smart, capable women stuck, wasting time, energy and money on things that don't work. And listen, before you think, here we go, another coach jumping on the menopause bandwagon, I hear you. Really, I do. But I'm not that coach. I spent over a decade personally coaching more than 500 peri and postmenopausal women, both in person and online, to a full and lasting transformation. 99% of the women I work with are in this exact season of life. What I'm sharing with you today isn't trending and it's not recycled fluff. It's built on real evidence, real results, and years of experience serving women just like you. So let's get into it. I want to start first with what menopause actually is. Menopause is a long-term hormone deficiency. It comes in 3 phases. We have perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. Perimenopause is the season when you still have your menstrual cycle, so you still have bleeding, you still have a period, but you start to develop menopausal symptoms. This can look like irregular periods, it can look like hot flashes, it can look like lower libido, itchy skin. There's an array of different menopausal symptoms. Menopause is defined by one singular day, and it is after 12 consecutive months of not having a period. So menopause lasts for one day, and after that you officially enter post-menopause, which is where you don't have a cycle, but you can still absolutely have menopausal symptoms. It's important to understand the majority of menopausal symptoms are caused by a decline in estrogen, particularly estradiol. However, changes in progesterone and testosterone, especially during perimenopause, can also contribute to symptoms like mood changes, fatigue, reduced libido, and sleep disruption. I think it's also important to share right now how important it is to also talk about how menopause impacts your mental health and your emotional well-being. Because too often we talk about the physical symptoms like the mood changes, the fatigue, the reduced libido, the itchy skin, the hot flashes. But so many women I speak to feel like an alien in their body and feel alone in what they're going through because they don't understand how menopause impacts their brain and therefore their dopamine and their serotonin levels, how menopause impacts their emotional well-being and why they feel so irritable all the time, like there's a rage going on, like a rage war going on inside of them. And so if that's you, I just want you to know that you're not alone. We need to be talking more about how menopause impacts our mental health and emotional well-being as well, not just the physical symptoms. So I also wanted to share that when it comes to figuring out whether you're in perimenopause or not, most women don't need hormone testing to diagnose menopause. Age and symptoms are usually enough, but blood tests can help in earlier or complex cases. I would recommend speaking to your GP or a women's health specialist with that. So before I get into the menopause myths and busting them, I just want to share with you the difference between evidence-based and pseudoscience. Because I don't know if you've noticed recently on Instagram or Facebook or social media, but there's so many coaches and influencers pulling up studies or research and pointing to them in order to back what they're sharing. And it can make it very confusing when, for example, you have 2 influencers with large followings who are both saying completely contradictory things and are both pointing to studies or referencing studies in order to make their point. Okay, so evidence-based science uses systematic reviews. They look at all the studies. What a systematic review is it looks at all the studies on a specific topic to get the clearest view. A meta-analysis combines data from multiple studies to find clear conclusions using structured, reliable methods. Evidence-based science is unbiased. It gives you more weight to larger, trustworthier studies and is transparent, which means that others can review it, it can go under scrutiny, it can go under review, and other people can check results. So that is what evidence-based science uses and what it is: systematic reviews and meta-analyses. Pseudoscience, however, lacks proper testing and transparent methods. It relies more on personal stories and often cherry-picks data to support claims. So this is where you'll get an influencer who will pull up a study and be like, this study done by this doctor does this. But that's like a drop in the ocean compared to the rest of the evidence and the data that is on that specific topic or whatever they are claiming. Okay, so it's important to look at the systematic reviews and the meta-analyses because they are going to give you the full picture, not cherry-picked data. It's also important to note that pseudoscience isn't open to peer review or scrutiny. So with that in mind, let's get to the first myth that I'm going to bust for you today. And it's this: it's harder to lose fat in peri and postmenopause because of your metabolism. I see so much information, or should I say misinformation, on this, and so many women think they're struggling to lose fat and to lose weight because their metabolism is broken. Now, I just want to share that it is harder to lose weight and to lose fat in peri and postmenopause, but it is not due to your metabolism. In fact, the evidence shows us that our metabolism doesn't change that much from 20 to 60 years of age. And when we enter perimenopause, our basal metabolic rate only reduces by 54 calories a day on average. So it is not your metabolism that is to blame as to why it's harder to lose weight in peri and postmenopause. The second myth that I want to bust for you is that the reason why you're struggling to lose weight in peri and postmenopause is because you're insulin resistant, or that a calorie deficit doesn't work because of insulin resistance. Now, the excess fat is what causes insulin resistance, not the other way around. Now, this confusion tends to happen from reverse causation. It would be like blaming umbrellas for rain rather than rain on umbrellas. Right? So it's the rain that causes us to use umbrellas. It's not, we don't use umbrellas and then it starts raining, right? So the same is true with insulin resistance. When we store more fat, our body needs more insulin to clear glucose from the bloodstream. This leaves us with chronically elevated insulin levels. But when you lose fat through a calorie deficit, your insulin sensitivity improves and your insulin levels naturally drop. Insulin can only increase fat storage in the presence of a calorie surplus. All right, we've busted that myth. We're going to move on to myth number 3. Cortisol is the root of all evil. We've even got coaches calling themselves cortisol coaches now. Now, I do want to say that in peri and postmenopause, because of the hormonal changes, women are more sensitive to stress. Okay? But cortisol, like insulin, gets demonized a lot. Women are told that cortisol is solely a stress hormone and therefore should be minimized and eradicated. This is simply not true. In fact, I want to share with you some of the benefits of having healthy cortisol levels. You have better emotional well-being. Healthy cortisol levels support your metabolism and your energy production. They help regulate your immune system. It actually regulates your blood sugar levels, and it can reduce chronic inflammation and support bone metabolism and mineralization. I wonder if you knew that before you came on this podcast today. So we want to aim for healthy cortisol levels. Women are told that cortisol is the cause of their symptoms and belly fat, but this is not true either. Estrogen is the main cause of that. Which leads me to myth number 4. A lot of influencers and fitness trainers online are telling women in order to get viral content to do these top 3 core exercises in order to lose your mean belly. Now, that's just not how losing fat works. You cannot spot reduce fat. Okay, so any programs that are marketed to you that are like belly flat blasters, or like specific to losing your mean belly fat, and that you have to do these specific core exercises or specific exercises in order to spot reduce fat from your body, I just want you to know that's pure marketing bullshit, because you cannot spot reduce fat from any area of your body. And I like to use analogies when I teach. So I just want you to imagine a swimming pool, okay? Now, if you were to take a plastic bucket and start scooping water out of one end of that pool, it wouldn't reduce the water from just that end of the pool, would it? It would reduce the overall water level of the pool. And this is exactly how fat loss works in your body. You cannot spot reduce fat. You can only reduce your overall body fat percentage. And I promise you it will come off your belly in the areas that you consider are problem areas when you're in a deficit. So many of the women I work with lose inches off their waist and their hips within the first few weeks of working with me. So when you've got the right approach, your body does respond. All right. This next myth is that you need to do a specific diet or a special menopause diet. Now, if you listen to my last podcast, hopefully you would know why this is a trashy myth. But the way you eat doesn't need to have a name, and every single diet out there is just a calorie deficit in disguise. So they try and sell you their method, and they withhold the principle from you. So the method is intermittent fasting, keto, clean eating, low carb, Mediterranean diet, Galveston diet, insert whatever diet, carnivore diet, right? All of these are the method, but they're hiding the principle, and the principle to every single one of those diets is a calorie deficit. The evidence shows us that there is no diet that is superior for fat loss. And like I said in my last podcast episode, it's not about finding the right diet so you lose fat, which is a temporary solution. It's about you developing a healthier relationship with food and a solid understanding around your nutrition so you can create the right calorie deficit for you that's sustainable and enjoyable until you reach your fat loss goal. And the habits and behaviors that you learn and unlearn through that process is what will sustain those results for you long term, which is a long-lasting solution. The next myth is that you need to balance your hormones. There are so many supplements and diets that have the slogan, balance your hormones. If I had a penny for every time I saw balance your hormones somewhere, which is wild, the first question I'd be asking is what hormones specifically to anyone who's making that claim to you. The second is that there is a huge lack of scientific evidence that supports these claims because of the fact that a single supplement or a dietary change cannot balance your hormones. It is completely disregarding the complexity of hormone regulation, and it's completely unrealistic. And also, it's not taking into account you. It's not taking into account individual variability. I'm willing to bet that my hormone levels, my estrogen, my progesterone, my testosterone, my FSH levels are very different to yours. So how could we go to the same store and buy the same supplement and it's going to balance both of our hormones? That's just wild. So hormone levels can have a huge variation between individuals, and what works for one person may not work for someone else. So treat these claims like a red flag. Any diet or any supplement that claims to balance your hormones is a load of BS. So now I'm going to share with you the true physiological reasons why it's harder to lose weight and to lose fat in peri and post-menopause. The first is an increase in hunger and cravings. As our estrogen levels drop, our hunger hormone ghrelin increases. This is why so many perimenopausal women I speak to complain that they have massive sugar cravings or just cravings that are through the roof, and that they're constantly thinking about food. They've got a lot of food noise and they're constantly hungry, and even if they're good during the day, they tend to binge or overeat at night because their hunger, their appetite and their cravings are just out of whack. So that's the first reason why it's harder to lose weight and to lose fat in peri and post-menopause. The second is the lack of sleep, the fatigue, the lack of energy due to menopause itself, and the change in menstrual cycle. Because in perimenopause, women tend to spend longer in the luteal phase of their cycle. And because you spend longer in the luteal phase of your cycle, this can mean that you struggle to recover better from your workouts. This can mean that you have less energy. This can also mean that your metabolic rate rises and you feel more hungry on top of the hunger and cravings you're already battling with because of the change in estrogen. So there's a lot of contributing things that impact fatigue and your energy levels through peri and post-menopause, and which is why sleep is such a crucial habit, and it's important that you get on top of sleep as much as you can with that. Okay, so the second real reason is is a lack of sleep, is a lack of energy, and the fatigue. So first we've got an increase in hunger and cravings, we've got a lack of sleep, a lack of energy, and fatigue. And by the way, if you're someone who's struggling with sleep, that is also going to be a double whammy for your hunger and your appetite, because a lack of sleep also impacts your hunger hormones and your cravings and your appetite as well. So if you're already struggling with that in perimenopause, the hunger and cravings already, and you are also not getting a good sleep, you can get a double whammy when it comes to dealing with your hunger and cravings. Okay. The next reason is redistributed fat, specifically belly fat. Every woman I've spoken to talks about what they call their spare tire, or the belly fat that is congregating around their midsection. Now, just to give you a scientific explanation of why your body redistributes fat to your belly, as women, majority of our estrogen is stored in our ovaries. And when we enter perimenopause and that estrogen begins to decline, our body's very smart. It recognizes that decline in estrogen. And so it looks for a weaker form of estrogen, which is actually found in fat cells. So that is why your body congregates fat cells around your midsection, which is near your ovaries. Again, this can be fixed by creating the right calorie deficit for yourself. And the last reason why it's harder for you to lose fat and to lose weight in peri and post-menopause is because you're moving less due to the symptoms you're battling, due to your menstrual cycle changes, due to the fatigue you're carrying around, and you just trying to figure out how to get on the same rhythm that your body is now on. So those are the 4 reasons why it is harder to lose fat and to lose weight in perimenopause and postmenopause. An increase in hunger and cravings, redistributed fat, specifically around belly, a lack of sleep, a lack of energy and fatigue due to symptoms and changes in menstrual cycle, and because of that, less movement due to the symptoms and the cycle changes that you're experiencing. So if you've been feeling stuck, it's not because your body is broken, it's not because there's anything wrong with you, it's because you've been bombarded with fear, fluff, and false fixes. You don't need a stricter plan, you need the skills, the understanding, and the self-trust to stay consistent even when life gets messy. If this episode helped clear up the noise or gave you a moment of, that makes sense, then go grab my free Menopause Mastery Guidebook. It's going to be in the show notes. It's packed with evidence-based support to help you cut through the fluff and take your next aligned step. You'll find the link in the show notes to that, or head to my website, coachjustinejetty.com, to download it. And if you know another woman who's stuck in the all or nothing loop, share this episode with her. Subscribe, stick around, we're just getting started. Until next time, take care.